Hey everybody, welcome to another Daily Renegade update. We got a lot to talk about. I am a little bit behind the times. I wanted to get to this last week, but I was fighting off a horrible flu, and I couldn't even get out of bed, let alone do a video. So there's been a lot of news lately about a new asteroid that may hit the Earth in 2032. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what that might have to do with Apophis 2029. We're going to talk about Bible prophecy and the trumpet judgments and lots of stuff. We're gonna compare this with Tom Horn's vision. And if you're not familiar with that, we'll get into all that. So lots to talk about in today's update. If you haven't had a chance, make sure you subscribe to this channel. If you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, subscribe, follow. If you're on YouTube, click the bell to turn on all notifications so you know whenever a new video comes up. I'm going to try to do more of these update videos. Every weekday I have at least an hour that I can do stuff because I have a lunch break, from my normal 9 to 5 prophecy watchers job. But I work from home and I don't eat lunch. I intermittent fast. I eat twice a day. So I figured, well, why not spend that time, doing update videos? Usually I'm catching up on other things, but I'm going to try to do more of these, like shorter update videos, for you guys more often. But yeah, please subscribe, share this video all around, and hit the like button, comment. That kind of stuff really, really helps. And I want to, grow our YouTube audience as much as we can, because that's the main place that people hear about Daily Renegade, which we'll talk about later. But basically, if you want early access to all the full videos we do, stuff that's not even available on YouTube, then you want to get a membership at dailyrenegade.com. More about that later. But anyway, so all that said, there was a headline that went up not too long ago, like a couple of weeks ago. This is from space.com, but at first it said, the original headline, and it's changed a little bit now, but it was that astronomers discover a 196-foot asteroid with a 1 in 83 chance of hitting the Earth in 2032. Now that chance has gone up. Like there's more of a chance now, but we'll talk about it. So what, these years keep coming up. We keep hearing about 2025, 2026, 2029, 2032. All of these dates in a short period, like a really short period. And all these convergences and stuff makes me wonder, like, man, it really seems like we're living in the end times, doesn't it? Or at least very, very close to it, depending how you define end times. If end times to you is just the tribulation, then we're obviously not there yet. But like, I think we're right at the doorstep. So the article says that a newly discovered asteroid, and it's designated 2024 YR4. I really wish they would come up with better names for these. But now this was back at the very end of January. It said that it had a 1 in 83 chance of striking the Earth in December of 2032. Now keep that in mind, because the Apophis asteroid is supposed to be April of 2029. So this would be roughly, not exactly, but roughly about 3.5 years later. Which is interesting because, and I'll get into why, but I believe that during the tribulation, I believe that prophecy does speak of an asteroid that will hit roughly in halfway through the tribulation. And there could be another event there at the very, very end that could be another asteroid attack in the bowl judgments. But we'll get into all that in a little bit later. So it says that this asteroid is estimated to be 196 feet meters wide, and it's currently 27 million miles away. So this was discovered in 2024. And it's around half as wide as a football field is long. And it's going to make a very close approach to Earth on December 22nd, 2032. That's funny. I just remembered, remember that whole Mayan apocalypse thing in 2012? That was December 21st, 2012. This is December 22nd, 2032. So that's like, what, 20 years and 1 day away from that. Anyway, not saying that's anything. That just kind of, I thought that was kind of interesting. But it said it's estimated to come around 66,000 miles of Earth on that day. However, when orbital uncertainties are considered, that close approach could turn out to be a direct hit on our planet, it says. Such an impact could cause an explosion in the atmosphere called an airburst, or could cause an impact crater when it slams to the ground. It says that this is enough to see Asteroid 2024 YR4 leap to the top of the European Space Agency's NEO, or Near Earth Object Impact Risk List, and NASA's Sentry Risk Table. So Sky Survey engineer and asteroid hunter David Rankin wrote on Blue Sky, quote, odds have slightly increased to 1 in 83. And keep in mind, this is January 28th that this came out. This is one of the highest probabilities of an impact from a significantly sized rock ever. So the asteroid is rated 3 on the Torino risk scale, which indicates a close encounter that warrants close attention from astronomers and an over 1% chance of impact. So it was initially founded, this asteroid was initially found by NASA-funded project called Atlas, using the project's telescope in Chile. So at first, Rankin said, quote, people should absolutely not worry about this yet, end quote. Then he continued, impact probability is still very low, and the most likely outcome will be a close approach rock that misses us. But he also added that currently the risk corridor for impact runs from South America across the Atlantic to sub-Saharan Africa. So it could be anywhere in that area. And then he also said that it's just important to keep in mind that its orbit is still too uncertain to know if it will hit. And right now, the most likely outcome is a miss. This impact corridor estimation will eventually go stale with new observations and better orbit calculations. Now, of course, every time there's an asteroid, they always say that. They always say, like, the chances are really low. And it always makes me wonder, would they tell us, or is it like in the movies where they keep it, they kind of keep it secret so people don't panic? But again, like, if an asteroid is going to impact the Earth and kill a bunch of people anyway, I don't know. I don't know if they would tell us or not. And a lot of times, even if it's not a cover-up or a conspiracy, a lot of times in scientific circles, they typically don't reach hard conclusions until there's an overwhelming amount of evidence. And even then, they'll say, well, it seems probable. It's just the way scientists talk. So while they say that the chances are low, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's nothing. So, hey everyone, concerning the economically unstable times that we live in, it is a great idea to convert some of your savings into real money. Now, there is a big difference between real money and what we call money, which is actually currency. So our dollar is currency, which fluctuates. Real money, like silver, is a store of value over time. The best way to think of it is like this. If you had saved $1,000 in cash back in the late 60s, the late 1960s, that $1,000 would still be $1,000 today, but it would buy you significantly less today due to inflation. Now, if you saved that same $1,000 in silver back in the 1960s, it would be around $28,000 today. So one of the best ways to protect your purchasing power is in real money, more specifically, silver. Now, you can buy and have the metal shipped discreetly to your door, and what most people don't know is that you can actually convert your IRA or even your 401k into physical silver rather than having all your life savings tied up in the paper fiat system, which is, of course, subject to hyperinflation. So go to dailyrenegade.com right now and click on the Cornerstone Asset Metals banner and sign up to get your free silver report. One of the financial experts will speak with you and find out the best way to protect your savings going forward in these uncertain times. You can also click on the link in the description below that goes directly to cornerstoneassetmetals.com. Make sure you tell them that Josh Peck at Daily Renegade sent you. It is time to stop trusting the evil beast financial system of the world and protect your assets today. What kind of damage could this cause? Well, it's it's predicted that it would be around the same size as the 1908 Tunguska event, or the meteor crater rock. So the impact effects would be more localized than regional, but it still has the potential to do serious damage to the area it hits, like if it hit a city or something. So it doesn't seem like right now this is like a world killer or anything like that. But at the same time, when we do look at prophecy, which we will look at a little later, the asteroids that hit, they don't destroy the world either. They cause a lot of damage for sure, and we'll see how. But they don't destroy the entire world. If you're not familiar with Tunguska, it's currently the largest recorded asteroid strike event in human history, though there's probably a lot more from prehistoric times. But Tunguska, there was a lot of damage, but it was in a pretty remote area. It released the same energy as the detonation of up to 50 million tons of TNT when it exploded in the atmosphere. And that was over a very sparsely populated region of Russia. And the blast flattened an estimated 800 million, or 80 million, trees over an area of 830 square miles. And it may have killed 3 people. So Rankin said, if asteroid 2024 Y24 is made of, if this asteroid for 2032 is made of stony material, it could cause a significant air burst and fireball reaching the ground. If made of iron, it will punch right through the atmosphere with little trouble and make an impact crater. This is why understanding not just the orbit but also the composition and size are so crucial, or are so critical. Excuse me. So now they're trying to learn as much as they can about it. But then there was another headline that came out shortly after, just really a couple of weeks after, saying that now this asteroid, instead of being 1 in 83 chance, now it has a 1 in 48 chance of hitting the Earth. And they've done observations. If you go to space.com, the headline is what the asteroid with a 1 in 48 chance of hitting the Earth in 2032 looks like. If you wanted to see images of it, it's real blurry. It's super blurry, pixelated, obviously. So it's really not much to see. But if you wanted to take a look at that, that's where to find that. But this says that that now this asteroid, it's a 1 in 48 chance of impacting Earth, and that so that's the chances of it hitting almost doubled in just a couple of weeks. Now it says, for obvious reasons, astronomers are desperate to learn as much as they can about 2024 YR4, estimated to be as large as 177 feet wide, which is as wide as Cinderella's castle in Walt Disney World, Florida, is tall. What a weird comparison. I don't have any idea what that even looks like, but I guess this asteroid is as wide as that is tall. Why would they word it like that? Why wouldn't they just say it's as big as that? Because it's an asteroid. There's no up or down. I mean, anywhere you said it, they could have just said it's that wide. Anyway, so that size comparison doesn't help me out at all. But it's big. So it says they were able to capture an image of it February 7th. And Bryce Ballin of the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, he's an astronomer there, who helped capture the image, says that it's really exciting. He says, quote, not only because of its notoriety, but for the scientific potential of studying such a small asteroid in high detail. Only a few asteroids have been studied like this, end quote. Talks a little bit about how they got the picture. And now what's interesting, though, too, is they are really trying to track this as carefully as they can because around mid March, so just like in a month from now, it's going to be harder to detect this asteroid from the ground because of its orbit. So it will become and so it'll start to fade away from view. We won't be able to see it anymore, and then it won't become visible again until mid 2028 as it reapproaches Earth. So he says, Bolin says, quote, therefore, this is the last chance we have to observe the asteroid from Gemini before 2028, end quote. Um, and so we'll just have to keep up on it and see if the trajectory changes, if the math gets more specific, if they're able to pinpoint even more closely, like maybe next time, maybe in a couple more weeks, it'll be a 1 in 20 chance. Who knows? We're going to have to keep our eyes on this. And also, I should mention too that End Time Headlines covered this too. They just got a short blurb about it. Basically, it's not a full. Yeah, it's not really a full article, but it just says astronomers have raised alarm over an asteroid measuring approximately the width of a full-size football field pitch, which is projected to make a close approach to Earth in just 7 years. The object, believed to be measured between 40 and 100 meters in diameter, was first detected on Christmas Day by a specialized telescope. We talked about that already. And so upon analysis of its current trajectory, it's been determined that this asteroid is currently retreating from the Earth at an astounding speed of 38,000 miles per hour, but its orbital path indicates that it will come dangerously close to our planet around holiday season in 2032, specifically December 22nd. So official assessments are saying it's a 1.2% probability of direct collision. And then that estimation marks one of the most significant collision risks ever recorded by the ESA, prompting the designation of this asteroid as top entry on the asteroid risk list. So, for context, the asteroid deemed to pose the second highest risk carries a mere 0.68% chance of impact. So they're keeping an eye on it. So it says, in light of this imminent threat, 2 international organizations are collaborating to evaluate potential response strategies and mitigation measures should the risk grow more severe as the impact date approaches. Something that my wife and I have talked about. We know prophecy, and when you get into some of the judgments, it really seems like an asteroid's going to hit the Earth at some point, probably during the Trumpet judgments. And we've talked about we're sending probes to these asteroids and stuff. What if just us doing that? Or what if we do see an asteroid that has a higher probability chance, like a 1 in 10 chance or something, and it was enough where NASA or somebody wanted to do something about it and tried to deflect it? Well, what if in doing that actually is what alters the course to make it hit Earth? Like if we would have just left it alone, it wouldn't have. Now we know regardless, because prophecy is set in stone. There are different ways that these prophecies could be played out, but it really seems like it's an asteroid impact. So either way, it's going to happen. But we've talked about that before, like because they wanted to. Like when Apophis gets closer, we're going to talk about Apophis in a little bit too, but when Apophis gets closer, they've been talking about wanting to, send probes or possible deflection, measures or whatever. And, so it just makes you wonder, but either way, a prophecy is going to be fulfilled. So, now, if you haven't heard of Apophis, it's been known for a while, but in recent years, it's come up to more high, I guess, popularity, infamy. I don't know. More people know about it now. but they at first said that there is a really, really, really low chance, like it's not going to hit the Earth. But then they started changing their tune, and NASA and all these people, all these scientists started saying, well, now it depends on the trajectory, and if it hits this specific part of the space above Earth, that then it could come careening into the Earth, and people are wondering about that. And um, I did a movie on it called Ragnarok. I did a documentary film with Tom Horn about it because Tom Horn actually had a vision about this stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute. But they're saying now that, and so Apophis, if it's going to hit, they said it would be April 13th, 2029, which is actually Friday the 13th of 2029. And so now they're saying, and this comes from iflscience.com, but now they're saying that the chance of asteroid Apophis hitting Earth may be slightly higher than we thought. No one gets into full time ministry to make money. At least no one should. Given that, Daily Renegade accepts donations from those who care to help keep us going. Now, because Daily Renegade does not want to be told by the government what we can and can't say, we're not 501c3, so your donations are not tax deductible. But that's not why you're giving anyway, to get something back for yourself. Speaking of which, we here are never going to promise that if you donate, God will reward you with even more financial success. We're not about making promises for God here. But what I can promise is your donations are very much appreciated and help the continuation of everything we do here at Daily Renegade to reach the world with the truth of the Bible. Also, as many of you know, my son Nathan has had some very serious medical issues that we are treating with good, all-natural and holistic remedies. But of course, those are very expensive and are not covered by insurance, so your donations help go towards his health care as well. If you can't afford to donate, you can always donate your time in prayer, which is far more valuable anyway, let's be serious. So pray for our wisdom, pray for God's guidance for us, and that we never lose focus on what's really important, which is using Daily Renegade as a light of truth that the world so desperately needs right now, especially in these times. As always, thank you so much for your generosity, and I pray God blesses you greatly. They're always careful in how scientists, they're always careful. It's slightly higher. They won't just say higher. But it says a new study looking at the potential hazardous asteroid Apophis has suggested that the odds of impact in 2029 or 2036 are ever so slightly higher than we thought. Because this asteroid Apophis, it comes around and around and around and around. So there's a lot of flyby dates. There's 2029, 2036, and I think 2068 was the other big ones. I think there's a couple of minor ones in the 2050s, somewhere around there. But the big one that people are looking at is 2029. That's the one where it is most likely to hit the Earth. So it says when Apophis was first discovered in 2004, observations briefly placed it at level 4 on the Torino impact hazard scale. So remember the one that they just the 2032 one is level 3. This one's level 4. With a score of 0 meaning the likelihood of impact is 0 or thereabouts, and 10 meaning a collision is certain, capable of causing global climatic catastrophe that may threaten the future of civilization as we know it, whether impacting land or ocean. So it says that while level 4 might seem low, it's the highest level of any object that has been discovered since NASA first started monitoring potentially hazardous near-Earth objects. It says a close encounter, this is how NASA describes level 4. Quote, a close encounter meriting attention by astronomers. Current calculation gives a 1% or greater chance of collision capable of regional devastation. Most likely, new telescopic observations will lead to reassignment to level 0. Attention by public and by public officials is merited if the encounter is less than a decade away, end quote. So it does say that further observation ruled out a collision in 2029 as well as 2036 and 2068, though there will still be close encounters. More recent observations have consistently found Apophis on the course to miss Earth in all these timeframes. Now, that's one thing, but that's what they're saying. In Ragnarok, Now, Tom said that he was pretty convinced there was a NASA cover up about this. But it could even be, we even explored the possibility, even if it's not that, some of the equipment they're using, the math has to be so precise because we're talking about very large distances. So if you're even like a decimal place off somewhere, it could throw off your entire formula. And there have been a lot of criticisms of the measurement systems that they use for these asteroids. And we talk about that a lot in Ragnarok, that it could be possible, and I guess it has been shown that some of these measuring techniques aren't as accurate as we would like them to be. And because of that, one little tiny thing that's off, and it could totally change the trajectory, and it could make Apophis more likely to hit Earth. There's also a lot of things that are really hard to account for. There's certain effects that happen in space just from the sun shining on the thing, that can create an alteration. I forget what it's called. We talk about that in the movie too, but that can create an alteration in its trajectory. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that can happen, and they really can't. They can't rule out an impact. They can say it's unlikely, but to say that they're just ruling it out, they really shouldn't even be able to do that. Now, it's interesting to note too that it also says we cannot track all space objects. We find smaller objects regularly, sometimes through astronomical observations and surveys, sometimes when or shortly before they collide with our atmosphere. And I think that's something that needs to be understood as well too. Our technological capabilities to track these things is not as great as a lot of people think it is. Like, a lot of people think that there are people that are just tracking every asteroid and we know where everything is and we don't have to worry about it. That will have plenty of time. That's really not the case. We're not able to monitor the sky like that. And we can only keep track of a very, very, very small percentage of the sky and of the asteroids that might even come close to Earth. I mean, there could be a big asteroid headed towards Earth right now that hasn't been discovered yet. It's you got to think of the Earth as a 360 ball where there's sky all around, and the Earth is really big and we are really tiny and our satellites are really tiny, and it's just it's nearly impossible to keep track of all these things. So we know where a few of them are, but certainly not all of them. I mean, there's even stories like this. Asteroid discovered hours before striking Earth's atmosphere. So it said astronomers managed to discover another asteroid, and this is because there was a couple of months, there was like 2 or 3 months where, or maybe longer, but where it seemed like a new asteroid was hitting all the time, and they only discovered it like either as it was coming into the atmosphere or a few hours before, or sometimes they don't even know about it and it just hits and they don't know until it actually hits. So that happens a lot. Yeah, astronomers managed to discover another asteroid just hours before it struck the Earth's atmosphere. So if it was big enough, that wouldn't have been enough time to do anything about it. According to reports, a space rock roughly 3 meters wide, so not super huge, entered our planet's atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean on Wednesday. According to NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies data, the asteroid named 2024 UQ impacted the atmosphere about 1,000 kilometers from the California coast. Scientists had predicted that the energy released from the asteroid upon its atmospheric impact would have been less than the one that hit the Philippine sky earlier in September. So this kind of thing happens all the time, and we don't always know about it ahead of time. So that's important to know. Now, talking about Wormwood, let's get it. So going back, going back to Apophis Wormwood. So Tom Horn, for those not familiar, he was author, host. You guys, if you just look up Tom Horn Bible prophecy, you'll find a lot of great stuff. Skywatch TV, obviously, started that. And I knew Tom for a long time. And he wrote a book called The Wormwood Prophecy. Now, Tom was convinced that Apophis would be the fulfillment of the Wormwood Prophecy. And it's not just because of that, well, the Wormwood Prophecy seems to be an asteroid. This is an asteroid, so that's it. It wasn't just that. Um, Tom actually had a vision of this, and like I know, like whenever I hear stuff like that online, my typical knee jerk reaction is to be skeptical of it. I definitely I'm not. I believe that people can have visions and God can give people prophecies and stuff today. I don't have any issue with that, but it's just because those gifts, I guess, they've been so abused in our modern culture by just a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing in just the broader Christian church, that for me, unless I really know the person really well and I trust them, for me, when I first hear something like that, I don't automatically write it off, but I am skeptical. Now the difference with Tom is I did know Tom very, very well. And Tom was not the kind of person that was going to exaggerate. He was not looking for self fame or anything like that. He was actually a pretty introverted guy, and he even told me one time we traveled a lot together. So me and Tom got a lot of one on one time together, and he told me once. It's funny because I can understand it, but he told me that if it was up to him, um, he didn't really enjoy doing a lot of like the TV shows and stuff. He did it because he was like, it's ministry. I'm taking one for the team. I'm trying to minister to people, but he himself, he wasn't looking for fame. He didn't even really enjoy it. He didn't get the same kind of thrill out of it that, a lot of actors get into acting, Hollywood actors, because they want to be rich and famous and all that. And unfortunately, a lot of like mega church pastors are like that too. Tom was the complete opposite of that. And so I really related to him a lot with that, because I can definitely understand that now. But he did have this vision. Now, it would be it would still be interesting if it was just a one-off vision. But it wasn't. And for those who don't know, Tom Horn had passed away a year ago, I believe, a year or two ago. Um, but while he was alive, this only happened to him 3 times in his life. So he wasn't one of these, I got a word for you, brother, every Sunday morning, and it's really vague, and you don't know what the guy's talking about, and it doesn't really relate to your life, so you just smile to be polite. Like he wasn't one of those at all. Like in all of the time that I've known Tom, he's never given me a personal word of prophecy or anything like that. And I'm not meaning to make fun of that. It's just, again, that kind of thing is so abused. But he wasn't that kind of guy at all. This had only happened to him 3 times before in his whole life. And the first 2 times, because the Apophis thing would have been the third one. The first 2 times they happened exactly how it happened. The first one was a personal family thing, so I'm not going to tell that story. He does get a little bit into it in Ragnarok, but that one was proven to be true. It had something to do with a church that they were going to at the time, and there was something going on in that church, and it was something along the lines of, he said, like, if you don't fix this, then this will happen. And the way that Tom described it, he says, like, they didn't, and it did. So they didn't listen to him, and whatever happened. So that was the first one. The second one is what most people are familiar with, and that was the book Petrus Romanus, the Final Pope. I think it's called The Final Pope is Here or something like that. But in that one, he predicted that the Pope Benedict was going to resign, and he predicted that before anybody even knew about it, except like the top cardinals or whatever at the Vatican. Like, no one knew about that. And then he published the book. And then once the news was released and it was actually found that he was right, that it did happen, he said he was even getting phone calls from people wanting to know his inside source, because it was impossible that he could have known that. It's like, well, when it's the Holy Spirit, that's your inside source. Nothing's impossible. I have just started a Substack. What is a Substack, you might ask? It is a place that contains early access to audio only podcast versions of full daily Renegade videos, plus my personal blog, which includes original articles, show notes, interview transcripts, and so much more. This is the only place to get this amazing resource, and it is not available to the general public. Adding a subscription to my Substack to your daily Renegade membership will ensure that you have full access to every format of everything that I do. So head on over to joshpeck.substack.com or click on the link in the description below to join up now for only $5 a month or $50 a year. And if you can do it, I suggest doing the $50 a year because it's cheaper in the long run, and essentially you get 2 months for free. So I cannot wait to see you there. Take care and God bless. So that's the one that most people who know of Tom Horn, that's the one that they're familiar with. So that one absolutely happened. God showed that to him, and I don't even want to say that Tom predicted it. I mean, Tom, he did, but he was relaying a message from God according to his perspective, and I believe him. So then the third one, and that's the main one having to do with Apophis. And he wouldn't survive to see if this is going to happen this way or not. But I actually have a quote from him about this vision that I'm going to read, so you can hear it from his words. And keep in mind, this had happened 2 times before. Now, yeah, the first time it was a family deal, so that's not really accessible to the outside world. But that second one is. I mean, that one, you can look at the publication date of his book, Petrus Romanus, and then go back and find and just look up when Benedict had first told his closest people that he was planning on resigning, and it coincides. So there's no way that Tom could have known that outside of divine intervention. Okay, so this is what Tom said about the Wormwood Prophecy, Apophis, all that stuff, and then we'll get into the prophecies themselves, and I'll show you some things. So he said, quote, words of Tom Horn here, quote, I had gone to bed one evening in April of 2019. It's interesting that would have been like 10 years before, because April 2029 is when Apophis is supposed to hit, if it's going to hit. Anyway, quote, I had gone to bed one evening in April of 2019, not anticipating anything unusual, when around 2 o'clock the next morning, I awoke in a hyperdimensional reality and saw in the heavens above me what looked like a horned, fiery serpent, hundreds of feet wide, plunging past the stars toward Earth at an incomprehensible speed. This terrifying monster seemed to be swimming across the sky past the planets as it descended toward the Earth. Then suddenly my point of view shifted, and I was lifted above the massive object, only to realize it was not a dragon after all, but rather a very large rock. And the way it was rolling through space, it caused the light of the sun to glide over its contours, giving it the appearance of something undulating through space like a living thing. The next thing I knew, I was on a tall hill or mountain somewhere, surrounded by thousands of people. We were running, terrified, and people were screaming for God to deliver us from the menace barreling through the sky toward this planet. Moments later, I heard a deafening sound. It was as if the earth was splitting apart, the ground beneath our feet jerking violently, knocking us to the soil, where we bounced viciously against the rocks, desperately reaching out for anything we could cling onto for stability. Somehow, I knew an asteroid had plunged into the Pacific Ocean, its massive form sending a sequence of tsunamis hundreds of feet into the air. As I glanced over my shoulder, I could see an overwhelming wall of water coming up over the hillside behind us. I perceived we wouldn't be able to escape. But then, it was as if 2 very large hands slid under my arms, lifting me high into the sky, where, looking down, I watched in shock as people everywhere were swept away by astonishingly large waves slamming into coastal terrains as far as I could see. The atmosphere was simultaneously infused with scorched particles of aerosol and vapor, as a blistering culmination of moisture and extreme heat subsequently combusted into a series of high-velocity hurricanes. Tornadoes, volcanoes, and earthquakes seemed to be going off like fireworks, with what were likely some of the 11 deadliest volcanoes on Earth, those of the Cascadia region of the United States, being triggered like dominoes, releasing so much debris into the sky that, for about a week, darkness covered the heavens worldwide as the entire landscape was pounded by hurricanes and atmospheric annihilation circulating within the jet stream. By the time days later, when the waters finally settled, storms subsided and the sky grew clear, much of life on Earth was dead. When I awoke, I nearly fell out of bed. Grabbing for pen and paper to record what I had seen, I was unexpectedly interrupted by what seemed like an audible voice. It could have just been in my head, but it seemed spoken to me. The voice uttered a single word, Apophis. Now, I knew there was an ancient Egyptian god of chaos and enemy of light known by that name. I also knew that NASA had named an asteroid Apophis, but didn't know any details about it. End quote. So after that, that's what launched him into this investigation about Apophis. It led to his book, The Wormwood Prophecy, and it led to our movie together, Ragnarok. I believe we talked, I think he talked a little bit about it in Zeitgeist 2025, which I actually ghost wrote a chapter for in that about these scenes and what the Dead Sea Scroll calendar, which is it'll be important later, but if you're not familiar, just real brief, the Dead Sea Scroll calendar, the Dead Sea Scrolls are a collection of biblical and extra biblical texts, but found within it is a calendar system that they use, and we've been able to recreate it. I don't mean I didn't have any part in it, but the experts have been able to recreate this calendar, and when you compare it with the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, it's the calendar that the Bible uses because everything's perfect on it. Everything's absolutely perfect on it. So it's a solar calendar. It's not a lunar calendar like the Pharisees used at the time. This, according to the Essenes, who were contemporaries with the Pharisees, this was the real calendar they were supposed to use, and the Pharisees were using a pagan lunar calendar. I've talked about it many times before, but the ancient Jewish group called the Essenes, who were around at the time of Christ, said that they were the ones who kept the original prophetic calendar God gave to Adam. Did you know that calendar has actually been reproduced today from the fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls? That's right, and now you can own one for yourself. So the Dead Sea Scroll wall calendar is now available and contains both the Essenes calendar as well as our own calendar, so you can compare the dates and see if they fall on anything interesting or prophetic in this amazing and ancient calendar. The calendar itself was developed by Dr. Ken Johnson and put into print by yours truly, so proceeds from the sales of this calendar go to support both Dr. Ken Johnson's ministry as well as Daily Renegade. It's amazing because this is the exact calendar that the Bible itself uses from Genesis all the way to Revelation. It's a great study tool and can even make a great gift for your prophecy-loving friends and family members. Click on the link in the description below to pick up yours today. So around the time that that all this was happening, I was finding out about the Dead Sea Scroll calendar, and they both pointed to around 2025, 2026 as being significant. Now, why is that? I'll get into the timing, but the Wormwood Prophecy in Revelation, we'll read a little bit about it. I believe that happens in the middle of the tribulation. Tom did too. And when you really look at the timing, it fits. It might not be exact, like on the exact day, but it's pretty close. It's roughly in the middle of the tribulation. Well, April 2029, you fast forward 3.5 years, then that would give you like a 2030, late 2032 return of Christ, after the tribulation. But that would also mean, if you back it up, that the rapture would have to happen really soon. Now, I want to make one thing really clear. This vision that Tom had, he never said that he was given a date. Okay, he never said that he was given the date 2029. There's a lot of flybys. There's 2036, there's 2068. There's this 2032 different asteroid. But so I want to make sure to make that very clear that nothing in the vision gave him a date. He saw the vision, and then he heard the word Apophis. Now later on in his interviews, he did communicate his belief that it was 2029 because it was the most likely date. So of course, but that's not to say that if 2029 comes and goes, then that must mean that Tom was wrong, because he never said that there was a date in his vision. So I just want to make that clear. He did say that he believed it was 2029, but that was his personal beliefs. Okay, so why on earth would I say that that the Wormwood prophecy likely happens in the middle of the tribulation? Well, it's interesting. I think I can even take it a step further than that. I think it happens on the Day of Atonement, and I think that this has to do with the abomination of desolation as well, which I believe that does happen right in the middle. So before we get to the actual trumpet judgments, I want to talk about the timing first, and then I'm going to go through the trumpet judgments, and I'm going to show how really a lot of these could be different stages of one event. Well, first, okay, we know that halfway through the tribulation, the Antichrist does something to desecrate the temple. What could that be, and why? Well, if it's on the Day of Atonement, it makes a lot of sense. And again, you can compare this with the Dead Sea Scroll calendar, which, I should mention too, if you want one, if you want a wall calendar, I have those available. The link is in the description below. But we do have that. It's the Dead Sea Scroll calendar with our normal calendar. So you can compare the dates, and you can see if anything happens on any particular day. So we have that available in the link in the description below. So I want to talk about the seventh seal. And this is the prelude to the seven trumpets. And let's pay close attention to what's being said here, because a lot of times I think this is brushed over because a lot of times we just don't know what it means. But I think there's an answer here. So it says, when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. That right there, I do think that is the midpoint of the tribulation. And I believe that this half an hour is when the Antichrist is desecrating the temple. And I'll explain why in a minute. But it says after that, it says, and I saw the seven angels who stand before God. Remember that? Seven. There's seven angels who stand before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. Then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints ascended before God from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with the fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. And there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So the seven angels who had the seven trumpets prepared themselves to sound. Okay, so we have an angel, we have a heavenly temple scene. There's an angel there's seven angels with trumpets, but then there's another angel that has a golden censer with, and he was given much incense. And there's the prayers of the saints. There's a golden altar before the throne. Okay, keep that in mind. Now I want to describe a part of the Day of Atonement ritual in the earthly temple. And keep this context in mind. The Essenes believed, the writers and keepers of the Dead Sea Scrolls, the ones that said that they maintained the true Jewish religion and the Pharisees and Sadducees had gotten corrupt. But the Essenes said they believed that the reason it was so important to do specific rituals at specific times and on certain days, and you cannot do them wrong, otherwise you could die. The reason is because angels were performing their own duties in the heavenly temple, and they were to happen at the same time. Now, angels aren't sacrificing animals or anything. They got their own version of it. They got their heavenly version of it. But the heavenly temple and the earthly temple is described as like a shadow of the heavenly temple in the Bible. So these rituals were supposed to happen at the same time. So keep that in mind. Because listen to what the earthly temple Day of Atonement ritual is like. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's a long thing, but the thing that is really important for us here, it says, um, and Aaron shall bring the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for him and his house, and shall kill the bull as the sin offering, which is for himself. Then he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from the altar before the Lord, with his hands full of sweet incense beaten fine, and bring it inside the veil. And he shall put the incense on the fire before the Lord, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is on the testimony, lest he die. He shall take some of the blood from the bull and sprinkle it with his finger on the mercy seat and on the east side, and before the mercy seat he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. So these are like parallel passages. I mean, it's describing the same thing, just how the heavenly temple is operating and then how the earthly temple is operating. So I believe that that is the Day of Atonement when the Antichrist desecrates the temple. Now, why that half an hour? Well, in the excellent Revelation commentary by Robert Thomas, it's really, really good. If you, I've got it on my bookshelf over there. I don't know if you can see it. It might be off camera, but it's a 2-volume set. Robert Thomas. It's like the best commentary on Revelation that I've ever seen. But in there, he actually he has a note in there, and he said that the part of the ritual that takes place in the Holy of Holies for the Day of Atonement, that takes a half an hour. That takes a half an hour to do. So imagine what the Antichrist is going to do. He's not gonna do it appropriately. Like he's desecrating the temple somehow. So he's going to do something similar to the Day of Atonement ritual, but he's going to pervert it in some way. I don't know how exactly. But he's going to pervert it in some way, and he's going to desecrate the temple with this perversion. That's why, and it takes half an hour to do that. That's why there's silence in heaven for a half an hour. I love the quote by Dr. Michael Heiser, another good friend of mine that had passed away, unfortunately, far too soon. But he said, when you're reading the Bible, if you find something weird, it's important. This is weird. Silence in heaven for a half an hour, and then it doesn't tell you what it's about. Well, it actually makes sense when you fit all this together. So I believe that happens right in the middle of the tribulation. That's when that happens. Okay, so because we have passages in Daniel, I believe, that says that, basically halfway through this week, through this 7 years, that he's going to break his agreement with Israel, and he's not going to let him do sacrifices and stuff anymore. So he does something. Now, okay, we went through that. We went through the Day of Atonement. So let's go through some of the trumpets. So think about this happening. So remember, in this scene, the angels are getting ready to do their heavenly temple thing. Because remember, I know we don't do temple stuff here in the church age, but once the tribulation starts, Israel still has 1 week left, 1 week of years. Israel still has that 70th week left. So during that time, it goes back to the way that it was in the Old Testament for those 7 years. So during that time, they will be doing temple stuff. And apparently the angels will too. And again, I have to make note, because people ask, well, why are they doing sacrifices? Because Jesus was the one in sacrifice for all. They're not doing sacrifices for salvation. That's not really what it was ever about. Salvation has always been the same all throughout time. Depending on the amount of knowledge that you have, but you put your faith in God. You put your faith for us, we put our faith in Jesus. We have more revelation now than they did back then, but they put their faith in the promise. They knew that a Messiah was coming, and they put their faith in him. That's what salvation is all about. It's relationship. It's are you in the family or not? So they're not doing it for salvation. So yes, for salvation, Jesus is the That's the sacrifice. That's the one. There's no other sacrifice. But we even read in like the end of the book of Ezekiel where it really gets into the millennial temple sacrifices, that there are literal sacrifices that still happen. Um but again, it's not for like eternal salvation. Anyway, on so it's Day of Atonement on Earth. They're supposed to be doing the Day of Atonement thing, so the angels in heaven are getting ready. Of course, they know what's coming, but then the Antichrist desecrates the temple somehow. He does something to desecrate it. In heaven, there's silence for a half an hour while he does that. Well, then what happens after? They take the censer with incense and everything, and it gets thrown to the earth. Well, what does that mean? Right after that, the seven angels start to sound. Now, I want you to picture this in your head. Think of these trumpets as steps of one single event, specifically an asteroid strike. And also keep in mind, too, you can have an asteroid break up in the atmosphere and split into two. You could have a binary asteroid system where there's two asteroids orbiting each other, basically, and it could hit Earth that way. So this is what it says. The first trumpet. The first angel sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and the third of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. So this could be just the first part. So this isn't the initial asteroid impact. This would be all the little bits that break up in the atmosphere, or all the little bits that are orbiting around it or that are coming with it. But these little pieces fall first, and you have hail and fire mingled with blood. That the blood, we don't know if that's literal blood or if that is like, iron. Maybe it looked red because this thing has iron in it or something. If it's literal blood, well, there's a bunch of airplanes in the sky all the time, and if this comes down and hits some of those planes, then that would absolutely that could account for it if it's talking about literal blood, or it could just be iron deposits. But anyway, and then that first stage of it, a third of the trees were burned up and all the green grass was burned up. Now, it makes sense to me if it's first one big asteroid, and as it starts to enter the atmosphere, it breaks into two. So then you're going to get all this debris, and I think that debris is what falls first. That's the first trumpet. Now, the second trumpet. The second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. And the third of the sea became blood, and a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. So, again, first trumpet, let's say like this, let's say it's Apophis, but whatever, this Wormwood asteroid thing comes in the atmosphere, breaks apart, and then there's all this debris because of that. The debris hits first, and that's first trumpet. Now, one of those pieces hits the sea, and there's something weird with it because it said whatever it does, it turns a third of the sea. It became blood. So this asteroid has something in it that's messing up the water. Now, again, whether that's iron deposits or some kind, Tom had even said maybe it's some kind of microbe. There could be some sort of celestial alien like kind of microbe thing. Maybe it could be that, or it could just be something that's poisonous to mankind. But maybe it's radioactive. It's something, but it messes up a third of the water in the seas. So then the next one, and the third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the water because it was made bitter. So this would be more on land, because I know it says rivers and springs of water, but that's where those are. Those are on land. So half of this thing seems to, or at least the piece of it, hits the seas, the ocean, and the other half hits the land. And the result is similar. A third of the waters become poisonous somehow. and a lot of men die because of it. So there's something up with this asteroid. Um, and then, so what's the aftermath of that? What happens when an asteroid impacts the Earth? Well, a bunch of stuff gets thrown up into the atmosphere. So, fourth trumpet. When the fourth angel sounded, a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them was darkened. A third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. So this could be all the debris that's thrown up into the atmosphere, and maybe it's just a third of the Earth that's really affected by this. Not necessarily you take the whole Earth and just a third of all the waters, but just maybe one third of the Earth is really affected by this. And so, like let's say if, well, just so like a third cross section of the Earth is affected by this. The other 2/3 of the Earth are fine, ish. But when the asteroid impact it hits the land, it's going to throw up a whole bunch of stuff into the atmosphere. And think about Tom's vision; it could set off a chain of all these volcanoes and everything. Well, that would block out the sun. That absolutely could block out the sun, the moon, and the stars. A third of them, a third of the Earth, the sky would be dark like that. And that could absolutely be devastating. Again, it wouldn't destroy the entire planet, but it would kill a lot of things. Uh, and then it says, Then I looked and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because the remaining blasts of the trumpet, the three angels are about to sound. So on and so forth. So, and then after that, you have the opening of the bottomless pit. The way that I see the sequence of events happening is after the Antichrist desecrates the temple, he's then able to kill the two witnesses, and the two witnesses lay in the street until Purim, actually, because it says that they lay in the street. This is what's cool about this Dead Sea Scroll calendar, because you can figure this stuff out. It says the two witnesses lay in the street, and you get plenty of day counts for the amount of time, how many days the ministry of the two witnesses is, and everything. Well, you can calculate. You can't do it on a Gregorian calendar, but you can on the biblical Dead Sea Scroll calendar, the Essenes calendar. Which again, if you want one, and it's in the description below. But you can count it out on there, and what you find out is those 3 days that they're laying in the street. Didn't you ever think it was weird that in Revelation, when it describes this, it says like people were cheering and they're celebrating that the two witnesses are dead, and okay, I get that, but they're also giving gifts to each other. I thought that was really strange, because I always compared that to these people. The two witnesses were their enemies. I mean, they're not. They're wonderful, witnesses of God, trying to bring people to repentance. But to these evil people, the two witnesses are the enemy. And when the two witnesses are killed, they're giving gifts to each other. Like, I remember when we got news that Bin Laden was killed. And I remember people celebrated and stuff, but nobody gave gifts to each other. Like, that's weird. Well, it turns out that when you time all this out, this happens on a Jewish celebration called Purim, where they actually do celebrate in the streets and they do give gifts to each other. So you can actually time this out and find out that this happens on Purim, which has all sorts of like really interesting parallels, because Purim was a day. It's from the book of Esther. It's a day where the Jewish people were able to basically get out from under the rule of like a dictator, like a really horrible like dictator, Haman. And these evil people will see it in the same light. They'll think that they've escaped their enemies. But then what happens, and again, I think that this happens on Purim, God calls them up. And so they see these two witnesses go up, and then there's an earthquake and all that stuff. One of the hottest subjects in Christian circles today are the shocking revelations coming from the Dead Sea Scrolls and their unique calendar. It seems like they knew more about the arrival of the Messiah than most Christians do today. His arrival did not catch them by surprise. They even knew the exact year of his arrival. Since their calendar got it right the first time, what does it have to say about the timing of the Messiah's next arrival? Why are the years 2025 and 2026 so interesting prophetically? Well, get ready for two highly anticipated, groundbreaking books on the Dead Sea Scrolls from yours truly. Forgotten Prophecies of the Dead Sea Scrolls, Unlocking the Final Jubilee of the Church Age, is available now in 2 volumes, representing almost 700 pages of research on this fascinating subject that has people talking and wondering if we really are living in the final days of human history. Volume 1, which I have right here, delves into the enigmatic Jewish sect called the Essenes and their amazingly accurate prophetic calendars. Volume 2 explores new feasts and festivals that the Essenes observed and their prophetic significance, as well as tying everything together into a coherent prophetic timeline from the foundation of the book of Revelation. Well, according to ancient texts that contain completely accurate prophecies to date, we are on the precipice of entering the final jubilee of the church age. So who could have known how much influence the writings that this mysterious group of prophets inscribes hundreds of years before Christ would have on our understanding of end times prophecy? Well, as it turns out, much of what we've been taught about Israel in the first century is incomplete. There were, in fact, Jewish believers who knew exactly what to expect in his first coming, that he would be God in the flesh and that he would die for our sins. If they accurately predicted the first arrival of the Jewish Messiah, what did they have to say about his soon return? The revelations found within these books have never been uncovered before, and they affect each and every one of us today. So click on the links in the description below or head on over to prophecywatchers.com to get your copies of my new 2-volume book set today. Now let's go back. So that's if that is Apophis, that's April 2029. If that's Apophis, then you back up 3.5 years. We should be getting a rapture pretty soon if it's 2029. Big if. I'm not saying it is. I don't know. If it was, though, what about the 2032 one? Because roughly 3.5 years after that, we have news that there's this other asteroid that may hit 2032. Could that possibly be prophetic as well? Well, I was looking through, and the one that I think would have the most probability of that would be the last bowl, the 7th bowl. Now, remember that it said the 2032 one isn't that big. It'd be about the Tunguska event level, but a lot of it depends what state the Earth is in at that point and where it hits. So you gotta remember, at this point, this is the last bowl. At this point, the Earth is devastated. It is as bad as it could possibly be. So it's going to be very, very fragile, where a smaller asteroid could potentially do a lot more damage. So I was thinking, 2029, halfway, through the tribulation, 2032 would be at the very end. This is the closest I could come up with, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily it, but it could be. So the 7th bowl, we're in Revelation 16, I believe? Yeah, 16, starting in verse 17. Then the 7th angel poured his bowl into the air, and a loud voice came out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were noises and thunderings and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such a mighty and great earthquake as had not occurred since men were on the earth. I'm just going to pause here. It doesn't say what caused the earthquake, so that could have been caused by an asteroid impact, or it could just have happened. It says, "Now the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell." So if this thing, this asteroid is big enough that it would devastate a city, but remember, this great city, all of the world's economy is happening here. So if this one city gets messed up, all the nations are messed up. Because I think it's 17 and 18 in Revelation where it really talks about how Yeah, how Babylon, all of the all of the commerce and everything goes through Babylon. Um, um, and other people, now that could be Jerusalem too. Now the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon was remembered before God to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. So there is a little debate on if the great city is Jerusalem or if it's Babylon in this specific passage. But either way, you can see just like what I was talking. It kind of doesn't matter because either way, this could happen due to just an earthquake, or the earthquake could be triggered by maybe another asteroid impact. And then it says every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And again, this would be a very fragile, busted up, already pretty destroyed Earth. So it wouldn't take as big of an asteroid, I think, to make this stuff happen. Then it says, and great hail fell from heaven upon the men, each hailstone about the weight of a talent. Men blasphemed God because of the plague of the hail, since that plague was exceedingly great. So we had hail in the first trumpet as well. There's something about hail with this. And when they talk about comets and stuff, and I know comets and meteors and asteroids, these are all different things, but they always say that they're icy, and I think this is like basically like hailstones that are like asteroids or comets or whatever designation. But another asteroid impact could explain all of this. Uh, and so it would be interesting, since we have the two major asteroid impact possibilities that we have are in 2029 and 2032 now. So it'd be interesting if these were the fulfillment of it. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be, because again, we would have to, if that was going to be the case, I think we basically have to have the rapture like this year. And I'm not going to predict that. I'll take it, I'll be happy with it. But I'm not going to predict that. There's also lots of possibilities that all of this could happen later. There's lots of other flyby dates, lots of other possibilities. But I think it's important to keep our eyes on this stuff and keep our eyes on the news, so we can at least keep track about the possibility. The hardest thing about prophecy is you don't know what's going to happen till it happens. You just don't. We know this stuff is going to happen, but we don't know the exact mechanics of all of it. It really does seem like a lot of it can be explained by asteroid impacts. And I want to make note too that does not mean that an asteroid impact can't happen before the rapture or before the tribulation. There is nothing preventing, prophetically speaking, there's nothing preventing an asteroid impact happening like now and devastating a city or devastating half the United States. Just because something like that, just because we don't find a specific prophecy about something, doesn't mean that thing can't happen. As far as I know, the Great Depression was never prophesied, and that was very, very devastating. There's lots of floods all over the world that aren't necessarily prophesied, but they still happen. So, if for nothing else, it's good for us to keep an eye on this stuff, and just so we know, like, all right, if I live near a major city, like I live in Oklahoma City. Now there are some things that you just can't do anything about, but if an asteroid impact happened and it didn't like happen like right over me, because that would obviously just destroy everything and there's nothing you can do about it if you don't know about it ahead of time. You don't have enough time to get out. But besides fleeing, if it happened close enough where just like stores are shut down, or like the economy takes a really big hit, or even like we don't have sunlight for a couple of days because it kicks up too much stuff. Are we prepared for that? Can you live on what you have in your house for a week, a month, a year if you need to? Like if you weren't able to go grocery shopping anymore, and it doesn't have to be asteroids, it could be anything, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes. I mean, there's lots of things that can cause devastation like that. And I think the biggest takeaway is, are we prepared? And again, I am not talking about the tribulation here. I'm a pre-trib guy. I don't think we're gonna have to be here for that. But that doesn't mean that things can't happen. And the closer I think that we get to the tribulation, the more these birth pangs are going to happen, the more types and shadows and examples of those future prophecies. I think we're going to see smaller versions of that. But a smaller version of the Wormwood Prophecy would still be absolutely devastating. So we can still have those things occur and before the rapture, and that's just how the world is. And we read about in scripture that the earth is basically groaning and straining because of our sin. Like, and the more that we continue on, the more this stuff is going to happen. So I just think it's a good idea to be prepared, like have maybe some emergency food or some medical supplies, just something so that if something were to happen to where stores are shut down for a week or something, or even a month or longer. Like what happens if another solar flare happens and the grid goes down? I mean, that's a very real possibility. Things like that do happen. We have had solar flares, and not even that long ago, like 100 years ago, the whole Carrington event. The only reason that wasn't as devastating was because we weren't as reliant on electricity as we are now. I mean, we still had there were phone lines and things like that, but it wasn't as devastating as it would be now. If the Carrington event happened now, and like, oh my gosh, can you live on what you have in your house for a month? I mean, it'd probably be longer than that to get everything fixed. So we don't realize how fragile we really are, and how easily something like that could happen, and we could be caught off guard. So we always want to be prepared for that kind of stuff. I think that's probably the main message of this update video. Man, this went long for an update video, but that's okay. So yeah, I guess that's it. I originally wanted to do this live. I tried to do a YouTube live, but my internet has just been this really awful today, really shoddy, that it couldn't keep a connection. I'm going to try to do more live stuff, because like I tried to mention in the live stream, I have about an hour every day that I can I can do stuff because I don't take a lunch break. So I don't want to waste that time just doing nothing. I don't want to just sit around and watch TV. So that'd be a good time to maybe start doing some lives. I don't know if I can. I probably can't do it every day, and I don't know how often. I don't want to make any promises, but I really want to try to do more stuff like that. But yeah, the main thing though is if you like this kind of stuff, there's lots more of it at dailyrenegade.com. And actually, I'll close out the video here because I do have a little spot that I'm going to play at the end of this that'll tell you everything you need to know about Daily Renegade. So anyway, I would love to know your thoughts. Please leave your comments below. Please like this video, subscribe, turn on the bell for all notifications, and let me know what you think about all this. Do you think that Wormwood, Apophis, do you think that's the same thing? Do you think Apophis is the fulfillment of the Wormwood Prophecy? What do you think about these asteroid impact stories? Do you think there's something we should worry about? Or do you think that, God's got it, we'll be okay? Or do you think it's just all nonsense? Whatever you think, I would love to know. Put it in the comment section below. And also, put in the words Apophis 2029 so I know that you made it to the end of the video. I really should start doing that more. I've seen a lot more YouTubers doing that. I think it's a good thing to do because it helps us if you watch the whole video. But not only that, I want you guys to have all the information available. So yeah, go ahead and leave a comment, like, share, tell your friends. Oh, one last thing. Let me know too. Let me know in the comments. Would you guys be interested in me setting up a program where you can make money if you sign up your friends and family for Daily Renegade? They have. I don't know. I can figure out how to do it, but. So we go through Uscreen for Daily Renegade, and they do have an option available where I could set it up that if you want to go and try to get people to sign up to Daily Renegade, you'll get a cut of their membership. So it's a way that you can make a little extra money. It helps us out a lot. Because we rely on memberships to continue Daily Renegade going, and sometimes people ask, well, you're in ministry, why are you selling subscriptions at all? It's the way that it works. We're technically an LLC, so yes, I work in ministry. We operate as a ministry, all of that. But I don't want to sign up. I don't want to do the 501c3 thing because I really, really, really don't want the government having any say whatsoever in what I'm allowed to say and not say. So I don't want to go the 501c3 route. I really, really don't. I had considered it before. Like, if Daily Renegade were to ever go donation based, we would probably have to do that. And it's like, okay, we can try to do the donation thing and say that we're sustained by donations and rely on people for that, but I don't want to do the 501c3 thing. So to protect us and to make sure that we can say whatever we want, I set it up as an LLC instead. So we sell subscriptions to dailyrenegade.com to supplement that and to keep this going. So we really do rely on those. So it is a trade-off, but it means I think it's more important that we get to say whatever we want to say instead of compromising and allowing the government to infiltrate or even poison some of what we want to talk about. I just don't want to do that. So if we were a much larger ministry or if we were a church or something, then that might be different, and I might have to weigh out those options. So I'm not at all throwing anybody under the bus that is 501c3. I understand that there are reasons to do it. Just for Daily Renegade, it's only me. I don't have any employees. Like, it's just me. So it seemed like that was the best way to go about it, and where we all have the most amount of freedom. So, and if you want to exercise in that freedom, come be a member at dailyrenegade.com. We have all of the videos that you don't see anywhere else. Plus, we have a place where you can talk and fellowship, and there's no censorship. I've never had to kick anybody out. I've never had a troll before, because trolls are pathetic. They're not going to spend their own money to go and troll somebody. They'll just do it for free on YouTube. So it's a good place for us all to fellowship and really be a family. So I'm going to give you some more information about that, but I'm going to close it out here. Man, this was long for an update video. I should have just made this a sharpening report episode, but that's okay. It's a little late now. I think I already said in the beginning that it's just a regular video, and plus I don't want to wait till Friday to put this up. It's already been long enough. I wasn't able to do it before because I was so sick. I'm okay now, but I'm glad that we got to it. So, all right. All that being said, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, love you all. Take care, and God bless. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are a Bible-believing Christian who opposes the kingdom of darkness trying to run the world right now, then you are a renegade to the satanic system. We here at Daily Renegade wear that badge proudly. So, if you're a renegade as well, head on over to dailyrenegade.com right now and get a membership today. You'll get our full catalog of Sharpening Report episodes and Daily Renegade update videos on topics such as Bible prophecy, science, technology, the Nephilim, aliens, and so much more. All of our episodes at Daily Renegade are early access, so as a member, you'll get the videos before anyone else does. Daily Renegade also offers videos not available anywhere else due to social media censorship. We also have a community page only for members where we can all fellowship together without fear of censorship. It's basically the best of Facebook and YouTube rolled into one without any of the garbage. Memberships are only $10 a month or $100 a year, and if you can do it, I suggest getting the $100 a year because it's cheaper in the long run, and essentially you get 2 months for free that way. So come join our family of renegades at dailyrenegade.com right now. The link is in the description below, and we'll see you there.